Hey, a lot of people have been recommending that you get Claudia to 1 star, and there are some good reasons to do so, but I think that she's just been hyped up way too much. For those of you who aren't familiar with me, I'm a value-focused whale, and I do my best to help you get the most out of your resources. Alright, let's take a look at Claudia's advancements, because those are really what define her as a character. Her 1 star buffs your team by 25%, up to 24%, sorry. Her 3 star just helps with physical damage and shatter from physical weapons. Leaks suggested that this would apply to elemental weapons as well. Since it doesn't, then this is pretty terrible value. Her 5 star increases skill damage by 20%, which is alright, but it's just skill damage. Leaks suggested that this would apply to all damage, but clearly it does not. And lastly, her 6 star just helps her 3 star. So increased physical and shatter from physical weapons. I think it needs to be said that this is exactly why you don't want to listen to hype for unreleased characters. The leaks would have you thinking that Claudia is some kind of godly support and that you would need to pull for her. And honestly, if she was like she was leaked, then you probably would have to pull for her. And I know a lot of people won't even check to see that she was changed, so they're going to be investing without doing their due diligence. Anyways, I still have more to cover. Let's take the most common reason to get Claudia. At S0, her weapon charge can inflict a debuff, which increases the damage you would deal to them by 20%, which is, here it is right here. And it's alright, but it's not going to be up all the time because it only lasts for 7 seconds. So I think at S0 she's very inferior to Tsubasa. At S1, Claudia on paper might be better than Tsubasa, um, but you lose out on other things that I'll get to in a second. Alright, let's dig into this a little. If you were to swap Claudia into a Frost team made up of Frigg, Tsubasa, and Meryl, like I have here, let's look at everything you'd miss out on. Claudia wouldn't get the Frost Resonance, this 15% bonus right here. If you had the Frigg Matrices, you would miss out on at least 8% attack. It says 10 here because I have 1 star. If you're using the Simulacrum trait for Frigg, let's see here. How do I show it? All right. You would be missing out on, what is this, up to 24% damage during a fight. And if you had invested in Frigg, then you're going to be missing out on a whole lot more. This 3rd star for Frigg only works if you discharge a frost weapon, and that's a very significant amount of damage that it deals. The S5 also only works with frost weapons. On top of all that, you're missing out on the crowd control that Tsubasa offers, and I honestly don't think that Claudia would be better than S6 Tsubasa when it comes to frost teams at least. So if you had added all of that up, you're missing out on up to 40% in damage buffs when you're playing Claudia. And if you did invest in Frigg, you're missing out on at least 60% damage buffs on Claudia. And you're also missing out on the nuke and shatter stuff from Frigg. And I think it's pretty obvious that Claudia at S1 is not a good pick if you're focusing on a Frost team. So let's look at Volt. A Volt team with Claudia would look something like Claudia, Nemesis, and either Samir or Crow, which doesn't give you enough shatter, even if you got Claudia to S3 or 6 for her shatter bonus. See here, Nemesis only shatters 6, and where is it? Samir's only going to shatter 6. And that just means that if you're going to put her on a Volt team, you're going to be shattering with Claudia. And her shatter, even with the 20% buff, is still going to be pretty subpar. So while I do think she would buff your damage a lot on a Volt team, she's only really going to be usable on content where you don't need a shatter character like King. And right now, that's basically nothing. Like you wouldn't be able to bring her anywhere except maybe the raids. Um, all right, so I covered Frost and Volt teams because I'm assuming that most people either have Nemesis or Frigg or both. Really, the only reason to go for Claudia is if you don't have a team with Resonance yet, or you really want to make a physical team. If I were that in that situation, I'd honestly still just wait for other units to come out first and pick up Claudia on her next banner if I wanted her at that point. And with all that said, I don't want to give the impression that Claudia is bad by any means. She is pretty high value if you uh, if you haven't gotten a banner character yet, or you want to make a physical team. But she's definitely not the put this in every team character that she was advertised as or leaked as. My issue with Claudia is that I have to compare her value to Tsubasa, who is so much cheaper to build, is very future proof, and is not a bad alternative. Like, if you get Tsubasa up to S6, which is not a far shot, because, like, just drawing on golds, I've gotten her to S2, and if I had just used my black gold or whatever on her, I'd already have her to at least 4, but I did not. And at S6, she closes the gap with Claudia, basically. Anyway, if your goal is to have a best all-rounder character, then you should really just be waiting for now. Um, it doesn't really matter how much they nerf Lynn. Her kit is basically guaranteed to outclass Claudia, just because of how it works. Uh, so even if they nerfed her damage numbers or whatever, you would still want Lynn over Claudia. Um, I'm not likely to whale for Claudia unless a physical unit is announced as the next banner, and I don't really think that's going to happen. And that's about all I had to say about Claudia. Let me know if you had anything to add later.